Right, hello and welcome to another Expert Insight interview. My name is John Golden from SalesPOP, online sales magazine, and Pipeliner CRM. Joining you as usual from a sunny, actually a bit of a heat wave, San Diego today. And I'm delighted to be joined from down under, from Australia, from lovely Sydney, by Lisa Pagotto. How you doing, Lisa?
I'm good, thanks, John. How are you?
Yeah, and I've given up with that stupid joke about, oh, give me the lottery numbers because you're a day ahead of me. You're dialing in from the future. So Lisa, you're the founder and CEO of Crooked Compass, a multi-7-figure immersive travel company specializing in small group, culturally deep expeditions to remote and extraordinary destinations. You were on Shark Tank Australia and you pitched your vision for authentic community connected travel. And then you built the business from the ground up. Then the global pandemic hit, right?
Yeah.
And you had to make some big high stakes decisions, including a major pivot. And that could have derailed everything. But instead of folding, you rebuilt from first principles, launched Crooked Compass by Air, later evolving into Adventure by Air, and emerged stronger with a reshaped leadership philosophy. And that's what we want to talk about today is that. So let's start off. When you appeared on Shark Tank, and you were chasing growth for Crooked Compass, looking back, um, what was the most consequential yes you had said in the years that followed, and why did it turn out to be catastrophic?
In the years that followed. So for me, my Shark Tank journey, I didn't get investment on the show.
Mhm.
My business was in a very unique position where it was the only business in the history of Australian Shark Tank that was able to film a follow-up a couple of years later.
Yeah.
Usually they only choose the businesses that have
Yeah.
had the investment. But the reason that I was able to do that was offset. Myself and one of the sharks, we struck up this incredible relationship and we got into a deal post-filming. And this is probably, there was just some incredible learnings from this time where I was very much caught up in the stardom of having a shark interested in me and my
Right.
business, and the exposure that they could give me, that I kind of had blinkers on, and
Right.
I was just in this tunnel vision mode of not being able to see anything but wanting to do what this shark wanted me to do. And I ended up agreeing to things that effectively, yeah, I was very lucky, but I ended up getting myself into a point where I was just so obsessed with wanting this media attention and all of this
Mhm.
flashiness that came with it, that I ended up getting my own business into administration because I just lost track of
Yeah.
what my business was about, who I was, why I started it. And I was just shiny penny syndrome. I was taken off over here, away from the focus of what I did.
Mhm. So what was that like when you suddenly were faced of administration and you were suddenly going, "Oh no, I've been blinded by the glitz and rather than the business fundamental." What was that moment like for you? I mean, obviously it wasn't like it didn't happen like in 1 second, but what was that gradual probably realization?
Well, actually, it did happen in 1 second.
Oh, it did.
It did,
Well, there you
yeah,
go.
it literally did. It ended with an email that I wasn't meant to receive, basically saying, "This is not happening. Can someone let her know?" And it was literally the rug being pulled out
Oh, wow.
when I had literally signed on 7 new staff members. We were in full scale mode, and I did not have the cash to be able to facilitate that. This was all part of this deal. And so it was an instantaneous,
Wow.
holy, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to swear, but holy moly
Yeah.
moment. And that feeling, it was a mixture of, I need to vomit right now.
Mhm.
What have I done? I've got this so wrong, covered with all of the sweats and the goosebumps and just that lump in your throat, all of those reactions in an instant, and going, I can't trade out of this. I cannot trade out of this. What do I do? And that was all of those things happening in what felt like a microsecond.
Yeah, so I mean, what was it like? So you received an email that you weren't supposed to get. So you weren't supposed to know this immediate, that they were pulling out and that. So obviously that was a massive shock. Um, what did it take, or how did you manage to kind of pull yourself together? Because let's face it, I mean, in a situation like that, a lot of people would just gone to pieces completely, or maybe just thrown in the towel, or maybe even just gone into poor pity me mode and like just, retreated from the world. How did you pull yourself out of that?
Yeah, and it's really interesting. I keep looking at that South Korean flag behind you on the wall. Um, so when this happened, this was 1 week before I was about to become a mum for the first time,
Mhm.
and I was adopting my son from South Korea.
Oh, no.
And I think if I wasn't in that position, I probably would have been one of those people that just went, "You know what? This is the card." Most I was the business was only 3
Yeah.
years old at this point. Most don't make it to 5 years as a small business. I don't know, but I possibly would have gone, "You know what? It's just not worth the fight." But
Mm,
because I was about to become a mother,
yeah.
there was just this fierceness of, I'm the breadwinner in my family. My husband at the time, he was taking a year off to be the
Mhm.
stay-at-home father while our son settled.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't an option to allow that to be an option. And so I mean, it took a long time. It took about 6 months, but I literally tried every possible avenue that I could to get finance. I applied for every
Mhm.
possible zero interest credit card. I spoke to
Mhm.
my accountant, every possible bank, and just no one would touch the business because the travel industry is just
Sure.
so volatile, and the business was so young. And it wasn't until it was International Women's Day, so a good couple of months later, and there was this lady hosting a session, and she said, "I would love all of you to write down someone who you would love to meet, but you've never had the courage to introduce yourself
Mhm.
to." And I put down her name. I'd met her
Right.
very early in my career, and she said, "Would anyone like to share?" And I said, "Yes, I will." And I put my hand up and I walked to the front of the room and I gave her my business card. And she kind of looked at me like, "What? Okay."
Oh, nice.
Right.
Good one.
Anyway, what ended up happening was 2 weeks later, I ended up having lunch with her and I told her, she said, "Okay, I've heard of Crooked Compass, but who are you? What's your background? What's your
Mhm.
career?" I told her everything. I told her the Shark Tank story, the position I was in. And she just paused and she said, "What is the figure that you need?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" And she said, "What is the figure that you need to clear that debt and to get that shark away from your business?"
Mhm.
And I said, "Oh, it's roughly X."
Yeah.
And she goes, "I need a firm figure. And can you get it for me?" And I said, "Yeah, I can get it for you this afternoon from my accountant." "Why?" And she said, "Give me your company bank details right now. I have believed in you from the moment you have opened your mouth, and I'm in a position to help."
Wow.
And that guardian angel moment.
Yeah, yeah. So basically, the rug pulled under you in an instant, and then almost an instantaneous, like suddenly you get this in that moment. It's hey, go back to the flag. It's the yang. It's the yin and yang, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it really is. And it's just, you know, I'm still speechless to this day about, she didn't even know who I was.
Right, right.
Like that kindness of strangers. And we're not talking $50.
Yes, yeah, no, no, I clearly. I think part of it is what you just said there. I think it's really interesting because sometimes I think when issues come up with business, whether it's your own business or the business you're working with, is if you don't have a really powerful why and a purpose, because the powerful why and the purpose will drive you, just like it did. You said, "I'm about to become a mom. I don't have a choice here. I've got to do something," and that why and that purpose gave you the energy. And I think that's probably sometimes what people lack when they get into a situation like this is they've never asked themselves why and what is the purpose of this and why do I even want to do it?
Exactly. And then if you flip the card on that, that's how I got myself into that rut in the first place, because I deviated from my purpose and from my why.
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
lost track of it and I nearly lost everything because of losing that focus.
Yeah, no, it's such a great story. And then tell me about so obviously the pandemic and all of that, and tell me about tell me about the pivot you made, because I think people love to hear about pivots, and pivots are things that are so, they're so difficult in one way, because you have to decide, am I pivoting completely, am I pivoting somewhat, am I okay with abandoning what I'm doing now, or even I've invested all this time and energy or whatever and going over here. I mean, that is also a very hard thing for people to make a decision on.
Yeah, it really is. And the pandemic was something that, hopefully none of us ever have to experience again in our
Please.
lifetime, where particularly in the travel and tourism industry, every possible channel that you could consider was closing in front of you,
Yep.
especially here in Australia. We had one of the tightest lockdowns in the world.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, for us originally with the Crooked Compass brand, we launched domestic touring product and it sold out within a week of launching it. And I thought, wow, okay, well, we can survive. We can survive with this. But
Mhm.
then our state borders started shutting. And
Oh,
so we couldn't operate any of them. And I'm going, well, what do we do? We're Australians stuck in Australia and we can't even travel in our own country. No one's interested in traveling within their own
mhm.
state.
Yeah.
And then we got locked down and we couldn't even leave our own homes.
Right, right.
And so for me, I'm that person where my brain just constantly needs to have something stimulating it.
Mhm.
And having literally nothing, everything was in reverse, refunds, cancellations. It was just, there has to be something, there has to be something, there has to be something. And our government gave us what we call JobKeeper, which was effectively a percentage of your salary for yourself and any employees to try and keep businesses
Sure.
in business whilst we couldn't trade. And I decided that I would use mine to learn to fly. I needed something that would stimulate my brain because nothing else was at the
Mhm.
moment. And being surrounded by negativity is not,
Yeah.
it doesn't allow for creativity or anything like that. And so, despite everybody telling me that I was insane, wanting to use that money to do one of the world's most expensive hobbies,
Yeah.
what ended up happening was I was exposed to this private aviation part of our industry that I had no experience in.
Right.
And uh, charter planes were still allowed to fly. Commercial
Mm.
flights weren't, but charter was. And so my brain suddenly kicked into gear and went, you know what? We can do private touring around Australia with charter aircraft. And so that was where the Crooked Compass by Air brand came from. And that
Mm.
is what saved the entire business. And so that's what we did. We did private air tours, taking people from wherever. We could use regional airports as well. So it broadened our scope to some of the most beautiful remote luxury lodges, but even cattle stations as well.
Yeah.
And that's what saved us. And we could do that state by state because everyone had different restrictions. But because of the price tag attached to that product and the business wound back to just being me, the overheads were so low, but there was enough for it to help rebuild the business and to keep it going. So that
Mhm.
was the COVID pivot that came about because everybody told me I was crazy.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Actually, I have to say, because I've been to Australia a load of times, but I've never been to like the interior, and the really it sounds fantastic. I'd love to do that. Love to take take a flight into somewhere like even the cattle stations would be awesome.
Yeah,
The other
exactly.
side of things. And you say also, by the way, anyone watching, Australia has a federal government system, so their states are have certain amount of autonomy. So that's how they could close everything down like that and restrict internal travel, etc. Um, you said you built from first principles. What were the first principles you used to rebuild a business?
I use the same principles that I used right back at the beginning when I started Crooked Compass. And for myself, and for it all had to be start with a why. It had to
Mhm.
have a why. And
Yeah.
that why was taking people to remote and obscure destinations. And we could do that in Australia because
Mhm.
having charter aircraft, we could go so remote. We can land on grass strips, dirt strips. We could take people to places that weren't what you find on Google. And
Fantastic.
so it all followed the same philosophy and the same values as the Crooked Compass business, where it had to be high touch, it had to be a high price point, or premium price point, I should say, and it had to be a service from both, customer
Mhm.
service, but the delivery of the product itself. And those three, when they're combined together, they work so beautifully and they deliver something premium that, people value in terms of what they're paying for. And what we offer across both brands, even still today, are things that you just can't do yourself. You can't figure it out. Australia is so big and
Mhm.
is so broad. And whilst there's no language barrier, the logistics of it,
Allegedly.
well, it depends what state you're in.
Yeah,
Sydney-siders should be able to understand. Queensland, maybe a bit different.
yeah. No, I'm a joke. I love the Australian accent, and seeing as I think Ireland had a little part in the evolution of that accent too. So yeah, with all our rebels, all our rebels
Yes.
and convicts. Um, but was there any like beliefs or assumptions or things that you had to let go of, that maybe from before that you had to let go of for this, for to in order for this success to manifest?
Yeah, I had to basically relearn to be me, and to go back to trying
Mhm.
to, hang on the coattails of a celebrity effectively, and leverage off that. I had to go back to it. All came back to why. Why did I want to start it, and why me? Why would I be the
Mhm.
person that runs this business? And what I've really learned through all of the roller coaster journey of this is if I just stick to what I did when I very first started this business 12 years ago, that was trusting my gut, knowing that the experience that I've had in my career that's allowed me to get to this point is what made the business successful
Mhm.
before I went on Shark Tank. Like Shark Tank, obviously, we had the TV exposure and so it made it boom.
Yeah.
But after everything that came back to it, I went back to the values that it started at. And they still continue now, 12 years down the track. And that is why the business continues to flourish, because we stick with that why, we stick with that purpose. And it's me just being me. It's, you see that coming through the brand, you see it coming through the communications. We're not trying to be the world's biggest premium adventure brand. We want niche, high touch, experiential, curiosity stimulating travel experiences. And that doesn't come from manufacturing something, it comes from being truly authentic.
Yeah, and it's such a good point because I think, and if you think about the pandemic, I mean, it was happening before the pandemic, but the pandemic accentuated it, and now with AI and everything, is that that authenticity and that connection with real people who have, who have real, passions and purpose and everything. That is becoming more and more, I think, what people crave. Because we live in a world now, because we had that shutdown, lockdown, and then we live in a world where nobody knows what's real anymore. I think the authentic leadership and connecting with companies who have authentic leaders or people in the business, I think that's a massive competitive differentiator going forward.
I completely agree. And I know that, even if we just look at the past 18 months, everybody did get caught up in the AI flurry and how exciting and how powerful it is. But it really depends on your business model. And because the
Mhm.
destinations that we operate in are obscure, they're stigmatized, they're controversial, people want to speak to a human. They don't want a bot replying to them. They want to know that they're getting accurate information because someone's personally been there. And
Mhm.
so that human touch element that we offer, that has to come with the style of product that we offer, it can never be replaced with AI. Yeah, we can use it to improve processes and systems, but that human touch that builds trust and connection and that demonstrates value, that can't be replaced in our style of business by
Mhm.
AI.
Yeah, and what would you say now is your is the leadership strategies or characteristics that that you really believe that that you epitomize, if you like, and that really drive your business forward?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's probably three
Mhm.
that are the main ones. The first one is alignment. It
Right.
has to align. It has to align with my values as the founder. It has to align with why we started the business in the first place, and it has to align with what we're wanting to deliver with to the communities that we work with, which is obviously sustainable income,
Mhm.
and not changing things for the sake of tourism.
Right.
So that means it has to be small, low scale. That's how it has to be. We're not interested in having departures every Tuesday and what that does to a community.
Mm.
That's so not our thing. The second one is about being really transparent. I often say that we over service and we are often over transparent.
Mhm.
We go to the point of telling people the worst case scenarios because some of the destinations, for example, Papua New Guinea is one of our top selling destinations. You have to manage expectations. It's not like going to Fiji.
Right.
So we will talk about how rough it is, tires getting punctured probably once a week, no hot water. We talk about all of the worst case scenario things to manage expectations in advance. And our travelers respect that because we're not trying to hide something. We're not just showing the
Yeah.
beautiful tribal pictures. We're talking about the reality because we know if we don't, we're going to be dealing with all sorts of complaints. And we have to be honest with ourselves that our style of travel is not for everybody.
Yeah.
We're not a mass market brand and we don't want to be. And so we shouldn't pretend to be. So that's the second one. And then the third one is just being the best at what we do. We know because we go. The
Mhm.
destinations that we sell, most people don't even know where they are on a map. let alone how to talk about them from firsthand experience. So that investment in getting the team to go and experience, to be able to talk from firsthand experience about, the quirks and the nuances that come with this style of travel, that is why people keep coming to us, because they're choosing destinations that Google or AI can't give you accurate information. They want to know that true touch point of what it's like over there. And we can only deliver that if we've been there ourselves and can talk truthfully, not textbook trained.
And as you mentioned earlier, I mean, your relationships with the communities and the destinations you go to is obviously critical, because let's face it. I mean, there's probably plenty of other people out there who would exploit that, but that obviously is key to the experience that your travelers have, is that you have that good relationship with the communities that you bring them to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, just to give you an example of that, one of the tours that we operate in Mongolia is with the reindeer tribes of Mongolia. Now, this tribe is it's a diminishing tribe. There's only 200 people left in the world in this tribe. And it takes us 7 days to reach them because they are so remote.
Right.
But the government is protective of them. They only allow 20 permits a year per company. So we have 20. I think we're one of 2 companies in Australia that have these permits. But to obtain those, it's about what you do to support this community. It's not about, I want access because these guys are really interesting and we'll get some great photos and content. No, this is a fragile tribe. It's a diminishing culture. So we send over 12 dentists a year that we fund to go and look after this remote tribe. Their number one cause of death is septicemia because they're foragers. They crack nuts and things with their teeth and they get gum infections. And so, they don't even use currency. So taking in tourist dollars doesn't benefit them. They're a barter community still today. And so the thing that we can do to help them is to help their health, because they don't have vehicles. They have reindeers as their transportation mode. And so those sort of initiatives is how we do what we do and how we continue to grow and to show that we make a positive impact. We're not taking in masses of people to see this. We take 20 a year maximum. Low touch, high impact.
Unfortunately, they don't have the flying reindeers, do they?
No, not Santa reindeers. They're further north. These are forest reindeers.
Absolutely. Well, listen, Lisa, this has been fascinating. If there was one last piece of advice you would give to somebody who maybe their business isn't going well, they're facing into struggles, they may be starting to doubt their own abilities and all that, what would be the one piece of advice you'd give them?
My one piece of advice would be, go back to why you started. Just take a total pause, and it's okay to pause. You don't have to keep pedaling underwater and hope that it's all going to stick. Just take that breathing space to reflect on why you started, and are you still there? Have you deviated? Have you, been distracted like I was? Have you lost that connection as to why you started to do what you did? And 9 times out of 10, it's something along those lines. You've lost that connection to your purpose as to why you started to build it. That would be my number one piece of advice. Take the time to pause and really, really reflect on where you're at, why you started, and where you're wanting to go, and is that in alignment?
Yeah. And to do that, you probably need to dig out some space and time that's quiet and not distracted. And actually, because I think that's the other thing too, is I think sometimes people allow the whole world and all the noise to be in. They don't give themselves the time to think and reflect.
Yeah, absolutely. And other people's opinions, they're not in the weeds with you. They're not running the business with you. It's just an opinion. And I completely agree, John, to take that time. Just to give you an example, literally last week, I had 3 hours lying on a mat in the bush alone, just so I had no phone, no distractions, no team members, no one else's voice except my own. And I just laid there, watched the clouds, whatever. I just needed space for decisions that, need to be made in the business without everybody else's noise. And that time and that space is so precious and it's so rare. But remove the digital devices. They're the worst.
Yeah, absolutely. And even if it's just getting up and going out for a walk, don't listen to your phone. Don't look on your phone. Just listen to nature. Yeah, exactly. Well, this has been fantastic. All of Lisa's information will be below this video. But before we go, please do remind people about what you do.
Sure. So I've got the two touring brands. Crooked Compass is our small group and private tours to your more stigmatized, controversial frontier and remote destinations internationally. And Crooked Compass by Air is our private air charters around Australia, taking you to the most remote and luxurious properties within the country, all in your own private aircraft.
Absolutely fantastic. Well, hopefully, maybe one day. So, listen, thanks again, Lisa. Thank you for watching and listening. I'll see you all again very soon. Thank you.
Thanks so much, John.